It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
What's up? What's happening? It's Craig Hoffman again, because I can't stop talking about this freaking football team that is going to the NFC Championship game. And with me is Logan Paulsen, back from Detroit. Logan, instant reaction, part 2. You're here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like kind of in disbelief, man. I'm like really. It was just such a crazy game, such a crazy performance. Like you did a great job on the instant reaction show of kind of illuminating kind of the gravitas of the moment. And you know, I kind of went into the game thinking this is going to be a tough game for them to win, but then for them to win in a way that was so demonstrative and so confident and so comprehensive, offensive, defense, special teams. It was just like that was the best team in football for a long time, Detroit. And for them to go out and go into Detroit where the atmosphere was absolutely insane. Like I'm on the sideline and there's times where I can't even hear Fletch and Bram talking because I have to squeeze my headphones to my head to just hear them. And it just to quiet the crowd, to make the plays when they had to. The game plan was excellent. The physical execution was excellent. Guys stepping up, Trent Scott coming in. I mean, you couldn't have written a better script. And so, yeah, I was literally talking to B. Mitch and Santana post game, and we're just staring at each other like, can you believe this? And we all had like little kid giddy smiles on our faces because Tana's like, I've never been to this game, and B. Mitch is like, I have, but I'm almost feel happier for this, and I've never been here too. So to see it now and to see it all with after all the adversity from last year and everything and the changes and the draft picks and to be here, I'm going to say unbelievable, and I think there's probably an historic precedent for it being unbelievable. There's just such a handful of people who've gotten to this game with a rookie quarterback and new coach and new GM and new owner, like just a special moment. And then being there pregame and you see the whole ownership group there and people coming up to you and saying hi and, you know, like who else was like everyone was there. Tom Brady's doing the
there.
game.
They played the Pistons,
like
and
Kevin
then Katie's
Durant,
there.
like the Barry Sanders is there, like walking around. Calvin Johnson's there. All these celebrities are on the sideline. Like it just was this surreal moment of like the Commanders are in this pantheon of like people wanting to come watch them play again, and it was really surreal. It was really cool, and again, like just I think the thing that I can't quite get over is the style of the victory. Like it was so good. There was moments of adversity, there was moments of success and handling success, which I was really worried about. Like when they came out in the second half and they went 3 and out, I was like, oh no, like they're not mature enough for the moment. And then I was wrong, man. They figured it out. They found a way to get it done, and that was the thing, man. Just how they were able to do it was so cool.
The third drive of the second half, the Commanders' second drive, right? They go, I guess technically it was 4 and out. They got a B-Rob big carry, then they go 1, 2, 3, goodbye. And then Detroit goes down and scores. Then that is the 15-play, 8-minute, 28-second drive. So, like, you want to talk about a response. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Also, on that the style of victory, Logan, it's the first time they haven't won on the final play from scrimmage in a month and a half.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they finally did not do the cardiac commander thing.
And it was almost worse for my heart than when they win in the last minute, because the whole time you're thinking like I was just, because they're up by 17 and they score the field goal and you're like, how many possessions can they get in with this amount of time? And then the timeout thing, and you're kind of, it's a different type of stress, and one the stress of success, you know. And I think that was the thing about it that was so interesting. It was so different. And then I did the post game interviews like with the guys as they're coming off the field, and it was so interesting to do them because they all felt like there wasn't like this tremendous excitement. It was like, yeah, like we knew we would do it. And it was that was another surreal element about it too. It was like they won with the long drive. They won with the explosive play. They won kind of sealing the game defensively, playing that soft zone coverage. Jeremy Chin with the interception. And then everyone kind of when they're walking on the field was like, yeah, we expected to be here. And it was just like, this isn't a great interview, but that's a really cool answer. You know what I mean? Like,
so. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was still like to capture that is, I think, important, because it goes back to the thing that, Mitch told me on the show on Tuesday, and that I brought up on the initial instant reaction show last night, was like this sign in the locker room that says they've got to go through us.
Yeah. And
that mentality, I think, is the right one for this team. There are teams where it's like, no one believes in us. And I heard some of that coming out of the locker room. Like, John Allen's like, no one outside of our locker room. So there's like a little bit of that underdog rally together mentality. Sure. But I think there's a lot more of just the, like, this is who we are. We have faith in us. I don't really care what anybody else thinks. Not in like they don't believe in us. It's like they may not. Like, what it is. Like, I don't care. Like, it's about us. And I think when you make it about you, and especially when that's been your message all along. And I think Dan did something really smart at the beginning of, I think it was this week, it might have been last week, but he walked into the team room and he told this story in the press conference. He walked into the team room and he's like, all right, guys, it's now the playoffs, or it's now the second round, and like, we got to change what we do. And the whole team looks at him sideways, and he just goes, I'm BSing you guys. We're going to do exactly what we have been doing. And it's like that moment of levity is good to acknowledge that this is not monotonous. This is purposeful. Mm-hmm. And I think I have rarely been around a messenger as good as DQ. And that's something that you certainly experienced, I'm sure, when you played for him in Atlanta. But it feels like this has got to be even a new level. Like, he's taken that skill set and honed it to a totally new level, and combined it with the GM and Adam Peters, who has brought in a bunch of people that are very receptive to that message. And I think that's how you get this kind of team.
Yeah, but receptive to the message or not, like, objectively, I think it's the right way to approach it. Like, the best players I've been around, the best teams I've been around are insanely process driven, right? And I think we even look at, again, Detroit and what they've done. Like, they're a process driven team. Like, the San Francisco 49ers, process driven team. It's like, we might not get the result that we're looking for in terms of wins and losses, but we're always getting better. We're always looking to improve. And I think that's what Dan just does such an excellent job at. And it does feel like, I don't know if it's because the guys they've assembled seem to buy in, they seem to get it, they seem to be process-driven guys themselves, but it is a excuse me, it's like that's the right way. And so, irrespective of like getting people that are going to support it or not, like, it's just, that's the right way to do it. And then the players seem to have totally bought in, and the execution just to be it. Like, someone was asking me this, it's like, have you ever seen anything like this? And I have never seen such a coached, well messaged, I don't know the exact word, team. Like, think about like the talent, right? Think about where the talent's at on the roster, and think about the results you're getting every week. It's like, this is when you get into coaching, it's for this team. It's to take a team that is fine, but when they're together, they're one of the best teams in football. You know what I mean? Like, the sum of the parts does not equal the result. And it's
can I remix that though for a second?
Go ahead.
Because I think there's like one shining example that is a proof of like an even, I'll say a remix version of that point, right? Which is the talent that was here is different than the talent is now. And I don't mean by acquisitions. I'm talking about like the talent that they opened training camp with is different than the players they have now. Because guys like De'Ami Brown are different players.
That's like, what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, as a coach, like, that is the goal, right? Is to take this person, De'Ami Brown is a great example, and say, this is what you are now, but this is what you can be, and get you there.
Right.
And so we've gotten individuals there, but then I've seen individuals get better, but to see the team galvanize this way and just get better as a whole, I mean, it's incredible. You know what I mean? And like, I don't throw that word around willy-nilly, right? I mean that. Like, having coached, having been around a lot of really good coaches, guys that I respect, it doesn't happen. It's a little bit of luck. It's a little bit of skill. It's a little bit of experience. But when it happens like this, it's a special moment. And I think that's why it's just, you're almost speechless after the game, because when you watch the coaching and the leadership, it's like, that is so incredibly hard to do, and they've done it. And it's for a million different reasons, but they've figured out how to get it done, and that's really impressive.
Yeah, I guess the thing that I was trying to clarify is that the roster's not as under-talented as it was when they took it over, despite the fact that they haven't added a bunch of new pieces. Like, I should say, when they opened training camp. And I guess that's right. Like, and that's, I think that's the thing here is, there's two parts to this. There's the schematic and like focus, elevation, which are two of the three main tenets of coaching. And there's definitely some good people around the league that do that, right? They can elevate talent through scheme. They can get guys to focus. They can give a great speech. They get, rah-rah up. But there's a lot more variance. There's a lot more up and down with that. The consistency of the improvement and the consistency of this team in general, really their only dip this year was when Jaden was hurt. Like when he was not himself, which we can talk about some of the running stuff, but also like you see the throw to Diami last night, the twitch he has on that throw where he snaps off that 38-yarder and then is able to both have like extreme twitch and extreme touch on the same ball. That's the kind of thing that disappeared in that midseason lull. And you're like, oh, in hindsight, they can tell us whatever they want about his rib, and he can tell us whatever he want about his rib, but that was clearly not the same dude. But outside of that, they've kind of been super consistent. And part of that is because they've literally transformed some of these guys into just different levels of players. And that's the thing that I think is, the other stuff is hard and is not, like, it's rare, but I think like that's the piece that's like, I don't want to say unique because it's not never happened before, but it's much closer to unique than rare in terms of just how much they're outperforming expectations. Is they've literally taken a Diami Brown, who was a cast-off fourth receiver, who was kind of just being kept around because he played hard enough and blocked and was going to be an alternate piece, into a bona fide number 2 receiver so far through 2 playoff games.
Yeah, it's this kind of mystical connection that coaches have, right? You're developing talent, you're finding roles for people, you're getting them to buy in, you're helping their professionalism, you're bringing in leadership as players and as coaches to kind of facilitate that. I mean, I can't say enough good things about it because I cannot think of a team that has seen this level of development and seen this level of buy-in and seen this level of like mindset shift so quickly. And if you have one, leave it in the comments, because I can't think of one team. Like if you think about, like the old Steelers with Roethlisberger with a young quarterback, like that was a good team. The Baltimore Ravens with Joe Flacco, that was a good team, right? And
right.
And like they were good already. And so to go from what they were last year to what they are now, again, there's a lot of decisions and things that happen that facilitate that. But even Jaden Daniels' development, and again, that's a testament to him, but that's a testament to the coaching staff and how they handled him. Like it's a special. And you talk about that throw, like that throw is special, and you see like why he's able to elevate an offense. Like he throws that ball because I was standing like right behind it, and he throws the ball before Diami even puts his foot in the ground to go to the post, before it even happens. Like he put so much air on it. I was like, it's going to get picked off because the safety's got a better line on it. But he put that ball exactly where it needed to be with such anticipation. And like, that's special. And you mentioned the physical element, but also like how he's grown as a player. Like that's a throw he doesn't make week 1. It's a throw he doesn't make week 5. Like he just knew it now because of his growth and because of the environment they've made to make him a better version of himself. And, one of my big criticisms of the NFL in general is they don't do a good job of developing talent. But I look at this group and man, they've developed guys at a very high level, and they're reaping the reward of that investment.
I think that this game is also a great example of that because what the dual track that they've been on, right, is they have found roles for guys that allow them to be successful, which helps their development because they feel success. Right. It keeps them on the field and involved. Then it's like, oh, can you also do this? Okay, let's add little by little, or in Jaden's case, chunk by chunk to your plate. He talked about that in the post-game interview with Brady. He's like, the coaches trust me to handle a lot, and I think I can handle a lot. And I think that we've seen they've let him handle more and more and more. And kind of this last evolution of him, or the last evolution we're seeing of him this season, God knows if there's another one to come. But like the last piece of this is now he's handling more and more in protection as well, where Biotish was doing all of that at the start of the season. Now it's like Jaden's handling a lot of that stuff. And I think it's allowed him at times to know like, okay, this is my weak spot in the protection. And I know I have to get this ball out because I'm in charge and I set the rules. And like, I can, even if I make a mistake, like I can deal with that. But like,
Craig, it's even more comprehensive than that, man. Like we're in there and like, I'm watching on the sideline and I don't know if it picks up on the TV copy, but he's checking runs. He's checking to different pass concepts. Like he's got such control of the offense. Like we're going to talk about this probably more in the review show or in the tape breakdown show. but like he made a play where I tell you, man, like they were in this like wide split, and we'll talk about that more in a second. But like I was like, how do you possibly know that Brian Branch is blitzing here? But
the Terry touchdown.
Not on that one. He did it on that one too, because it's a zone read pre-snap. But he re-ID'd the protection, gets it set up. They block it up. Great job by the O-line, and he hits like a little 10-yard dig on a 3rd and 10. But like that's big. That is big boy football stuff, right? Like as a coach, when you have a guy that's at the helm that can be like, hey, let's get the protection locked up. It raises the floor of your offense so tremendously. And this was a game where, yeah, like he made some big time plays. Terry made some big time plays, but his stuff at the line of scrimmage, and you were talking about like his evolution, like it gets you out of so many bad looks, and it maximizes every play. And in a game where every play is important, like getting a guy that's making those kind of decisions, I don't know how many offensive plays I had, 60, like however many times he did that, it's special, man. It's special. And to think about where he was and where he is now, like I can't get over the performance he had last night. And again, the stat line, the box score, not great. It is what it is. It's fine. But like,
the stat line was still pretty darn good.
But it's the stuff that
it doesn't capture.
Yes,
just
it doesn't
how great
capture.
it was.
It doesn't capture everything, right?
Totally. By the way, they played 74 offensive snaps last night. Man. And do they really? Yeah. 37 pass block, 37 run block.
Wow.
So they were dead even 50-50 on the splits. Of course, that evens up a little bit as they're running out the clock late. But still, I mean, that's kind of what you dream of, is that you can play that way for most of the game, and then by the end it's even because you're just running out the clock. But to get back to what I was saying before, that was a great insert, and I think really illustrates just how special he is. But they find ways to make or have guys experience success, which both helps their development and helps you win football games. And last night, like the ways that they're able to set up success for this offense. By they, I mean Cliff, I mean Tavita, I mean Anthony Lynn, I mean David Rye. Keep naming assistant coaches all day long. Like that whole staff. Salute to each and every one of you that had a role in this, which is probably all of you. And I think that was really, really special, and some stuff that I highlighted on Friday just based off like the next gen stats and some of that stuff, where it's like, I think they're probably going to lean heavy on pony personnel in this game because they're really good at it, and Detroit's not very good at it. There's some good stuff out of empty. Like we know that Jaden's a monster against the blitz, and Aaron Glenn's going to blitz. But the ways in which they ensured that success would happen, using some of those tools and some other stuff I'd love for you to talk about that you saw from the sideline, and we'll get a lot deeper into on the tape review show. There's pretty special stuff from the staff.
Yeah, and I think so in the preview show, like one of the things we talked about, or one of the things that like was really giving me consternation, was I felt like Detroit did a really good job with the disguises, right? Like you weren't always sure. I wasn't always sure what the coverage was. Like, is it single high? Is it too high? Is it man? Are they bringing a pressure? And it was really hard to kind of diagnose. And I was like, how do you make sure that Jaden knows like what's going on? Like, what's the solution? And I just felt like the answer was so obvious. Like it was so obvious I didn't think of it, but like the first play of the game, they get an empty and the splits are just a little bit wider than they normally are, right? And they get that width, they get that space, they put the running back out wide. So hey, I got a man zone tell right now, and if they're blitzing, they can't disguise it because they have to get closer to the blocking surface to bring the pressure, right? So that's the first one. And then they went to even more extreme. They got these wide bunches where they're really, really wide. They're almost outside the numbers with the bunch. They got the stacks where they're almost outside the numbers. And so it does a couple things. One, it just cleans up everything you're doing offensively, right? I can see who's blitzing. I can see the coverage. And the other thing is it makes it really easy for me to check into runs because all I have to do is count to 6, and if there's 6, I'm throwing a pass. If there's 5, I'm running the football. And B-Rob, has a really productive day, one of his most productive days in the last couple of weeks. It's because they were just like, we're going to get you in bad looks. Like one of the things watching the Buffalo game leading up to this is like if you get in a 3-by-1, so three receivers to the left and of the tight end to the right attached, they apex their will linebacker between the third receiver and the tackle, in addition to having 3 receivers over the top. So you get this really, really light box structure, and you can attack this player who's got to fit that run from like 6 or 7 yards off, and he's removed from the box. And they ran that run probably 4 times in the game. And it's just the way they were able to, through formation, dictate and find good looks for the runner, dictate and find good looks for the passer, and help him identify protections. Like, I thought that was masterful, man. And you were talking about the touchdown to Terry. That was great. You know, like, because the split is so wide, he can see it. It has to happen right now. And just stacking those plays and stacking that production was great.
And it's something that is kind of Cliff's superpower, right? You know, that we talked at times this year about how Cliff uncovers a lot of the things that Sean and Kyle and Ben Johnson like do with motion or whatever else. A lot of the tools that a lot of the football nerd community loves, and they love to criticize Cliff for when he was back in Arizona. And some of those things like Cliff has put in. There's some like quick short motions with Zach to just get him free releases, and like some of that stuff that he's kind of added that is really smart, and the football nerd community likes it for good reason. But the way that Cliff is able to accomplish some of those same things is through formation and personnel. Yeah. And you've talked about that, I think, really, really intelligently all year long. And this was like a masterclass.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, masterclass is the right word, because like you want something simple that's going to work, that fits in the confines of what you do. And I feel like he just found something that was exactly that. And then you give Jaden, the most important person on the field, an opportunity to diagnose and dissect what's going on, and you get these results. And it was just, and again, that was something I was really worried about. And I thought they got away from it a little bit in the third quarter, but then they popped right back into it. And they said, this is what's going to be good for us. And it was just really successful. And in addition to the wide splits, I thought every time they did a really nice job of being like, and it wasn't always 100%, but it was enough where it's like, hey, Zach Ertz is the widest guy. Who's lined up over Zach Ertz? Is it man? Is it zone? Is there a backer removed from the box? Because if there's a backer removed from the box, like matched them on a back, it's probably man. And this is probably the pressure they're going to bring. And just finding those solutions was awesome. And it was great. And in a game like this versus a team that's very, very talented, finding something like that you can just hang your hat on is incredibly important. And I think you see the result of that.
For sure. And the result is that Jaden had a historic day against the blitz. Jaden completed 12 of 16 against the blitz for 191 yards and a touchdown. That's the second most passing yards against the blitz by a rookie in a game since 2016 in the regular or postseason. Daniels was blitzed on 54.1% of his dropbacks, the second highest blitz rate he faced in a game this season. During the regular season, Daniels recorded a 114.7 passer rating against the blitz, the highest by a rookie in a season in the next-gen tracking era, which is back to since 2016. And I think the other result that I thought was really, really sensational is they're able to use some of those same tools to make sure that their stars could make plays on fourth down. And the fourth down stuff in this game is absolutely massive. Per Next Gen Stats, Commanders, this was just per the stats. Commanders convert 3rd of 4 fourth downs, also get the one off the 12-man penalty on the Lions. Here's the Next Gen part of it, Logan. This just blows my mind. Quinn kind of bucks the analytics. The Next Gen Stats decision guide only had a go for it recommendation on one of the 5 scenarios when he decided to go for it, with 2 toss-ups and 1 field goal recommendation. The Commanders gained a total of plus 25.7% in win probability across the 5 plays. During the regular season, they gained 103.5% in total across the 23 times they went for it, trailing only the Lions. So they had a historic rate in the regular season, plus 103, and they had a quarter of that in this game because of how aggressive Quinn was and how successful they were in doing it, which led to a funny scene that Fortier wrote about in the post afterwards, where apparently Cliff and Mariota were laughing about the first fourth down that they missed because they can laugh about it now, because for the second straight game, they go for it on fourth down on their opening drive, get stopped, doesn't change their approach the rest of the game, and they win 2 straight playoff games, in part because of how good they are on fourth down.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to like look at that math, just kind of review it, because again, like in this game, there was no doubt. I don't know if it's just because you're on the sideline, there was no doubt to go for it. So to me,
same.
Because
no doubt on my couch either.
Yeah, the way that Detroit's offense was functioning, and I just thought you need touchdowns. Like they're going to score touchdowns, and they did. They did a great job of that when they weren't turning the football over, which we'll talk about here in a second. But really, like in a game like this versus a team like that, you have to just add win percentage, right? And I think that's the best way to do it. And I didn't feel like any of them were insanely risky. They were all kind of in the red zone. And to me, like, like this is simple math, but like, every time you give a field goal, like you're just wasting a possession kind of in a game like this, right? Because it takes one touchdown to get 2 field goals and you're still down 1 in that exchange, right? So you need touchdowns. I thought that was a really aggressive mindset by Dan. I think it was the appropriate mindset by Dan, and obviously it paid off. And, that could easily, when you operate in such a high variance situation, it could easily come back and kick you in the teeth. But like, I think to win a game versus a team like Detroit, that's the kind of risk you need to run. And I think they did a great job of that. And, I think it's just another testament to Jaden Daniels and how this offense operates. And again, I love some of the play calls they had in those situations just to get the execution and get good matchups. I think they had one to Zach, which was great. And just being able to turn to a guy like that in those situations, the one to Jaden where he boots out and gets the first, like just being who you are as an offense and knowing what levers to pull and getting the execution from the guys. And I think that's the other thing is the coaches get a lot of credit for the decisions. Jaden gets a lot of credit, but you got to hit them. You got to get on base. And they just did a great job of that throughout the game.
For sure. All right, last thing. I probably did, if I made one mistake on the post-game show last night, it's that I did not give enough credit to the defense. Yeah. And obviously there is some very obvious plays where it's like, yeah, that Quan Martin interception, that was sick. We talked about that. Not just a great reception, but I think he broke like 4 tackles on the return. Mm-hmm. Excellent job. Did talk about Mike Sainer still. The 2 plays he makes are great for different but equally fantastic reasons on the ball. Chin gets the one late, on down the list. But I also think like a thing that it hit me today or sometime in my sleep last night, because this game is what I thought about, is Ben Johnson is going to get crushed for the Jameson Williams end around pass, which he should. It was a very silly call. He's probably also going to get crushed in Detroit for not just handing the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs more because Gibbs was incredible in this game. But the fact that he felt like he had to do this stuff, that there are like 4 trick plays in this game from Detroit, probably speaks to how well Washington's defense was playing down to down, basically outside of the Gibbs carries, that he felt the need. And I know that it's Detroit. I know that it's Johnson. I know that it's Dan Campbell. I know they do this stuff as part of who they are. But that was a high volume even for them. And so I think that speaks to something. And those are trick plays that a lot of teams don't run in high volume for a reason. And eventually that reason showed itself on the Williams interception.
So this is a really interesting kind of thought experiment. And like, one of the things like I think you posed that question was like, why do you feel the need as an offensive coordinator to do that, to kind of to run this like pitch shovel and this reverse and all this kind of stuff? And I think the thing is, the one thing about Jared Goff is that I think he's had a tremendous year. I think he's a very good football player. But when it's like time to sit back in the pocket and read it out, like in that 2-minute situation, at end of half, end of game, right? You feel how hard it is for him to do that. There's certain guys that get back there, like Joe Burrow is a great example. And maybe that's a bad example because he's the best quarterback in the NFL at this specific thing. But you're just like, he will find the right guy. He knows what you're doing. He knows how to layer throws. He knows how to find the space in these coverages. And when you watch Jared Goff, it's not that, And so I do feel like there were times like when the play action pass was a little bit dicey, when they couldn't find their shot plays, I think there was a little bit of consternation. You could feel it from the coaching staff, right? And that's why you feel like you need to pull this stuff out. So I do think the game plan is great. I think Joe Witt Jr. played way more zone than he normally plays. And they were okay with that because, again, even on the Quan one, right? It's a play action pass. The hook player does a great job getting under the throw. He puts a little bit too much air on it, and Quan's right there for the interception. Like, that's not something that we saw in the Baltimore game. That's not something we saw even in the Philly game, right? Like, this is something new for Joe that I think speaks to how they thought of Jared Goff and the things that he thought he would struggle with. And he did struggle with them, right? He had a hard time consistently reading out zone coverages in straight drop back situations. And so, you get them to a 3rd and 10, they're going to play some type of zone. And it wasn't always the same zone. It wasn't always cover 2. It wasn't always this. Sometimes it's a fire zone, the replacement zone, whatever it is. But I thought that was a really excellent understanding of what that player struggled with. And I think it led to some of this stuff that you're talking about. And again, we got to watch the film to confirm this stuff. But it led to some of the stuff where it's like, man, we got to find explosive chunks, and we got to be a little bit creative with how we do them. And again, we're the beneficiary of kind of a silly, and I don't, honestly, I'll say this, I don't even think that's a bad call, on the reverse pass. I don't think it's a bad call. What I would say is what you're exposing yourself to. Because if he just runs, he probably gets 20 yards, right? If he just takes off and runs, and like, when he says, oh, it's not there, and just runs, Jameson Williams, you're probably getting a 10-yard gain, and no one even thinks about it. The problem with the play is that you're giving a non-quarterback decision, a decision that he's not used to making. Right. And so unless it's wide open, it's like, don't do it.
Which, by the way, the disgust in Tom Brady's voice on the broadcast of making that exact point. I know you didn't get this because you're obviously you got Bram and Fletch in your ears and you're on the sidelines as part of a broadcast. But Brady literally is like, and you're giving a non-quarterback a decision. He's just so mad about it.
I mean,
just seething.
It's when you call that play, the guy's going to throw the ball. Like, we've done that. I've done that with a bunch of NFL teams. We did it in college, done it in high school. That dude is going to close his eyes and throw the football because it's their first time to show off their arm and be all these different things. Like, they don't make great decisions back there. So, again, you trust the play. You like it. Your trick plays up to that point have been very, very successful.
And but the shovel thing, that was insane.
Was beautiful, man. Was beautiful. And the thing about it is, like, as a coordinator, I'd never call that because it just seems like so risky, but it's such a well-designed play. And the thing about them, and when you watch them on film, is like when you run a hook and ladder, like there's so many things that can go wrong, but they just have a good feel for the execution of it. And that they must have repped that 100 times to get that execution for a 25-yard gain in the red zone. Like, it's just, I love it, man. Even the reverse they ran, it's brilliant. Like the ball, the way that the running back had the ball and kind of hit it down and all that kind of stuff. They're really excellent. It's a well-coached, well-executed offense. But I think Joe Wood Jr. deserves a lot of credit, right? And people say, oh, they should have given the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs more, which I totally agree with. But then I think back on it, and I got to check my notes, but there's 2-minute drives, right? And so you're not going to run the football in those drives at all, right? End of half, end of game. And I think that is another reason where, like, certain game flow things the Commanders were able to play for and play to that led to that put the offense in areas where they had to make certain decisions, and it negated their probably the best player on the field in Jahmyr Gibbs.
Probably. I also, though, if I'm doing a Detroit show today, I'm like, look, David Montgomery's awesome. He's been great for our team, but like Gibbs proved he could be an A1 back when Montgomery was out. This is Montgomery's first game back. I don't know that we needed to use as much David Montgomery. Like there's ways, but hey, who cares?
But the other thing too, this is more of a philosophical point, but like I think that when you have a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, it felt like Christian McCaffrey, right? It felt like the impact that an elite runner can have on an elite offense. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to there. Like, he's special. Right. He can catch the football. He's an explosive runner. He can find you explosive plays. And that's essentially what Christian McCaffrey did for San Francisco last year. And it's one of the reasons they struggled this year is they lost that kind of free, explosive play slot machine. And when you think about things that this offense needs moving forward, finding a guy that can make explosive plays like that for you is definitely high on the list.
And Austin did a fantastic job of being some version of that guy. Like, he doesn't have the finish that Gibbs has. No, very few players do.
I mean, he's probably one of one, right? I mean, Gibbs.
I mean, Saquon. Bijan is pretty nasty.
Pretty close, yeah.
Like, McCaffrey is a guy.
What I say when I say that, just in terms of like that top end gear.
Yeah. Maybe like, Saquon.
Maybe Saquon, right? But again, and there's something different about his running style. And this is a conversation for a different show. Yeah. But like that guy that when you hand the ball to, like, it could be a touchdown every single time, and it's something special about that.
Right. Meanwhile, back to Witt and what he did coverage-wise. Goff, 3 of his interceptions against split safety coverages in this round per Next Gen Stats. His most such interceptions in a game since Week 14 of 2018 against the Bears. Commanders allowed just 10 completions for 112 yards across 23 pass attempts when playing split safety coverage, compared to 12 completions for 199 yards on 15 pass attempts when playing single high. Goff's only touchdown of the day was thrown against cover 0. So I think that is something to kind of take that, stick it in your back pocket, remember it when we preview either their matchup with the Rams or the Eagles, because either way, I think there's a huge argument to be made to play a bunch of, let's mix our 2s, our 4s, and our 6s. Let's play a bunch of soft zone and just be a bend but don't break defense. I think that's the best version of this defense, and that's what they were yesterday. They broke a couple times, far quicker than intended. The Williams screen, just like some individual, or reverse, I should say, the individual brilliance plays. But overall, like, it shows, like, when it gets tight down in the red zone, it's really hard to score in the NFL. And the fact that the Commanders have done it at a fairly high level this year, like, hats off, excellent job, well done. But the Sanders still pick, chin late, like, you got quarterbacks that try to fit balls in tight windows. If you can make a play on it and change the game, takes points off the board, creates turnover, big time stuff. And the Commanders did that. Anything else from a guy who was there on the sideline, taking that all in? During the game, the post game, anything?
Just tremendously excited, the emotion, just seeing, the whole ownership group waiting outside the locker room with their families, and the actors, and Kevin Durant's there, and just I'm not like a famous person, but everybody's getting hugs, right? Like Dan Quinn's wife's giving everybody hugs, Adam Peters' wife. It just, the joy from that group of people was absolutely tremendous. Terry coming out of the locker room yelling.
Can I real quick, Logan, just circle back on the ownership group? I had this thought earlier when you mentioned them, and then I forgot it and never remembered it again, so I don't want to forget it for a second time. Mm-hmm. Dan Snyder was notoriously, like, reclusive in his ownership. Yeah. Like, he was bad for a million reasons, right? But one of the things that always struck me was he was surrounded by, like, 3 security guards at all times, and, like, you could not talk to the man. Yeah. He lived literally above everyone else. And so to see Josh and, like, Magic Johnson, if he wanted to live with 3 security guards around him at all times, fine. You're Magic Johnson. Like, you're Magic Johnson. What else do I have to say, right? But the fact that Josh, Magic, Mitch Rose, like, when we're in the hallway at Northwest Stadium, Mitch always comes by as we're waiting to get into the locker room post game and talks to us for a few minutes just to, like, say hi, be like, wow, that was amazing. Like, tell us about how he was feeling during the moment. Like, the accessibility and the kind of humanity of this ownership group, especially when compared with the last guy, is something that is worth, pointing out, celebrating, and acknowledging. Well,
even on the sideline. So we're doing our show. We do the pregame show down there. And, like, Mitch comes up to us and everyone gets a big hug, like the producer, CJ, everyone gets a hug, right? And then Josh Harris is signing autographs and taking pictures with all the fans that are backing up. And it's just, it feels so much more familial. Like it's got this really nice kind of environment, and seeing everybody post was great, man. I mean, it gets me a little bit emotional thinking about it, because it is such a stark juxtaposition of what it was. And again, everyone's happy because they're winning football games, but it feels different. It feels exciting. And it feels like people care. And I think that's maybe the most important thing.
Great place to end it. We'll be back with a full film breakdown on Tuesday. In the meantime, if you're listening to this as soon as it comes out, enjoy the other games today. 2 tremendous games. Now, obviously, the NFC game. A lot of interest in that one. Let's see who the Commanders are going to play. And then you get the nightcap between the 2 MVPs.
Dude, I'm so stoked for that game.
The MVP
I can't
candidates.
Even tell you. Oh my
God. We could go for another hour talking about that one. The Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen showdown. Going to be a hell of a lot of fun. And by the way, that's just for a chance to go play Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game.
It's such a bummer that these 2 excellent, we're so blessed, man, as football fans, to have those guys.
By the way, we're very blessed here in DC because of the guys that are like dudes like that in the NFL. Looks like we got one.
I know.
That 5 guy's pretty good. So looking forward to that. Film review, just how good was Jaden? We'll tell you on Tuesday, as if you need us to hint. Very good. And then Thursday, we will preview the Commanders' next matchup, which will be, for the first time since 1991, in the NFC Championship game. For Logan Paulsen, I'm Craig Hoffman. I probably will think of more things to say between now and tomorrow on the radio, so I'll see you guys then on the Team 980. Subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now, and we'll see you next time on Take Command. Thanks for watching this clip of Take Command, which has a brand new home.
That's right. You can watch on YouTube at the Team 980.
You can also listen to full episodes in the free Odyssey app, which is now enabled with Apple CarPlay. So we'll just, follow you around.